What is going on, everybody? Tony Catalina here from the Austin American-Statesman. You are tuned into the latest episode of Behind Enemy Lines, a Texas A&M football podcast. Big week for the Aggies in week 3. They go into South Bend, Indiana, take on Notre Dame, and walk out with an impressive victory. A&M wins it 41-40. It took the very last second to win the game. Some big plays, some big moments, and honestly, that win is something I believe that A&M is going to be able to catapult and use as a big boost for this season. Not only for this season, for this program and this tenure under head coach Mike Elko in his second season. There were a lot of question marks about what this team could be, what their ceiling is, and what could come of all of this, as they enter year 2, attack the transfer portal, tried to be better. I'm going to get into all of that in a special bye week edition of Behind Enemy Lines. No guest, just straight up me and Ball, and just trying to, talk all things Texas A&M football as we get ready for them to calm down, relax for 1 week. I think they've had a lot of excitement over the first month or so of the season. So just wanted to kind of dive in and kind of assess it all, get a reset of where they are, and let's get right to it. So, like I mentioned, A&M comes into Notre Dame. This was a moment that I think a lot of people were curious to see how they would respond, and I think it's hard to sit here and say you're not utterly impressed with the way they played. Marcel Reed, this offense is real. It's the legit explosive offense that they spoke about. I mean, if you talk to them all off season like I did, the number one thing that they said was that this offense was going to be explosive. They believed in the ability for them to be one of the best offenses in the country. And, after 3 weeks, it's hard to argue with the results, right? I think in the first couple of weeks, you said, okay, it's UTSA, okay, it's Utah State. Now you got a secondary like Notre Dame. You got a team like Notre Dame, a top 10 team in a hostile environment. The home opener for Notre Dame after a national championship runner-up season. Like, this is going to be the ultimate test. Can A&M come into this environment, find a way to come out victorious, find a way to do some of the things that they had been doing and be successful? And it's a resounding yes, right? 41 points to beat Notre Dame 41-40, to show the resolve, to show the resiliency, to show the ability to not blink in those moments is super impressive. Marcel Reed, now in statistic like value, right? It wasn't his cleanest game. He threw, looking at the numbers here, he wasn't all that, accurate with the deep ball. He had talked about them missing some shots and, missing some guys by a step or two, and that happens, right? That's going to get calibrated, and I would be far more discouraged by that if they weren't already proving to be able to go in and hit the deep shot, right? This is something they've done over the first 3 weeks. Now we have a large enough sample size to know that this team is going to be an explosive, take the top off the field offense. So missing a few shots against that secondary in that spot is less concerning in my opinion. So just looking at Marcel Reed in totality, man, I mean, this guy is, I mean, I'm not the only one saying this, so nobody should be shocked, but he's talking himself into the Heisman conversation, right? Marcel Reed is 9 touchdown passes and 1 interception with a QBR of 74.8, which is 38th in the country. Okay. He has 869 passing yards. And then you add in the fact that he's got, just looking at it here, it's just his rushing numbers is just, he's added, another touchdown on the ground. So 10 total touchdowns, 1 interception. It's been an impressive start for a guy who people had a lot of question marks about coming into the season. Now, we talked about the mechanics. Everyone's talked about, can he be a legit thrower? I think the facts are that he has developed. I think he has shown that he can be the true passer. And I've said this a few times. I've said it here. Marcel Reed is really combated, and people around him have really combated the idea that he isn't this thrower of the football. He believes he's a quarterback first, and I think the stats, the numbers bear out to be true here. He's comfortable in the pocket. Now, again, things around his feet, he's a young quarterback. I think when things come, slow down for him a little bit, he'll have a little bit more comfortability, a little more trust in his offensive line. But clean pocket, even with a little bit of, tunnel vision where, it's coming from the edges. He's got a little pressure. He's okay stepping up, keeping his eyes downfield and running when he has to. But the main objective for him is still to get the ball out in space to his playmakers. He's shown the ability to improve there from this year to last year. So it's been encouraging to see. Now, when you look at this A&M offense, everyone came into it saying four running backs, seven off returning offensive linemen. This is going to be a pound the rock type of team, and I think they have the ability to do that, right? Le'Veon Moss had 3 touchdowns against Notre Dame. I think this is his. I'm feeling good. I think I'm back to myself, kind of breaking out party, so to speak. He had played in the first 2 games. He had shown the ability, but I think against this opponent in this moment, Le'Veon Moss has shown that I think he's as close to 100 or as close to confident as he can be from where he was last year. And obviously, we know what kind of player he was last year. So you add in the fact that they believe to be a running attack, and then you have a passing attack that, Mario Craver, KC Concepcion, Nate Borkshire, these guys, add in just strictly staying with the wide receivers, never even mind Nate, and we'll get to him obviously with the play of the game, but you add in a Terry Bussey, you add in a Ashton Bethel Roman, like there are 4 guys on the outside that A&M can get the ball to that are going to make plays that you can trust in big moments. And obviously it's highlighted by the 2. I mean, Mario Craver sitting here leads the country in receiving yards. How many people legitimately, right? And I know you might be lying. How many people legitimately thought that Mario Craver was going to lead the country in receiving yards? I think we had an idea that he was going to be a productive member of this team, and we thought that he would be an important piece. But most of the attention this offseason was on the addition of KC Concepcion with right reason to believe he's been as advertised, right? I think he's been as good as anyone could hope he has been or could be. But Mario Craver being the leader of all leaders at the wide receiver spot in the country is, I think, caught a lot of people by surprise, myself included. I mean, sitting here with 20 receptions, 443 yards, and 4 touchdowns in 3 games. I mean, it's really, really impressive. And then you look at KC with 13 receptions, 227 yards, and 3 touchdowns of himself, including a 4th, what he had in the punt return. So for those 2 guys to have 8 touchdowns in 3 games, it's tough not to look at this transfer portal and say that they haven't done great things with it, right? Like they attacked needs and they hit home runs so far, right? 3 games in. I mean, Nate Borkshire, tight ends haven't really been all that super productive. But you brought in Nate Borkshire as the pinnacle of that tight end. Remember him, Amari Niblack, these guys come in expecting to make an impact, and they have. I mean, those players, does A&M win this game without those 3 players in week 3 against Notre Dame? They just don't, right? I think those 3 guys in there and the way they've been able to add value to this team right off the bat is super, super impressive. It's a testament to A&M's recruiting. It's a testament to this coaching staff to identify lingering issues from last year and to make sure that those things aren't issues moving forward. So really, really impressive. A&M sits here number 10 in the country in both polls, right? A top 10 team. They beat a number 8 Notre Dame. They came into the game 16th and they jump up 6 spots. 6 spots in the AP poll. They're now number 10th in the country. It feels valid. It really does. For them to sit here and say they're a top 10 team. Now, initially, I thought there's no way they're going to jump up that much. I thought they would probably settle in around 12th. But when you sit here and say, hey, this is a top 10 team in the country, I'm not going to disagree. I'm just not going to disagree. I think I had said it all off season long. They're going to win the first 2. Check. They come into this week 3 game, and you can check the math. You can check the facts on this. I picked A&M to win this game all off season. Every time I spoke to somebody, I put it in my own articles at the Statesman. I've talked about it all off season long. I thought A&M was going to find a way to win this game. They talked about the focus, and they talked about having revenge on their mind, and they talked about how they wanted to correct the mistakes they made last year, which was the loss to Notre Dame, South Carolina, Auburn. These are games that they lost that they felt like they just left things on the field that they shouldn't have. I think the first step in that progress was Notre Dame, and I believe that they had a motivation and the talent to go ahead and do that. That bared to be true. This team went out there and they played inspired football in a hostile environment, and they came out with a W. So now, looking forward, this is a top 10 team with a ton of eyes on them and a ton of hype. How does A&M move forward? How do they respond to this? I think this bye week actually comes at a good time. I know some people have the feeling it's early in the season. You're hot. You want to keep playing, and that's fine. But I think it gives the Elko and the coaching staff a chance to reel his guys in first off, get healthy, right? They had a couple of injuries, had some guys who, significant injuries. Obviously, Bryce Anderson, that's something we're monitoring, and hope all the best. Seems like the signs are positive there. As a human, on a human level, Bryce Anderson looks to be and appears to be doing better. So that's number one. But Scooby Williams intercepts the ball and comes out of the game. He comes out in street clothes on the sideline. So there are some things that they got to work through, some nicks and just some cuts and bruises there. So I like the idea of Mike Elko reeling his team in here. Okay, now you're a top 10 team. You're not going to sneak up on anybody. You're not going to surprise anyone. Everyone expects this team, when you're coming into an environment, into a game, that they're going to be a quality football team they're going to have to give their all to. I think it gives Elko and company a chance to tell these guys, hey, lock in. This is what it's got to look like. This is what we've earned. This is what we got to do to maintain, and this is what we got to do to stay on this level here. So this bye week gives them a chance to get 2 weeks of preparation for Auburn. Like we mentioned earlier, a team that beat them in overtime, 4 overtimes to be specific, last year at Auburn. It gives them a second chance at revenge to kind of, you already knocked down Notre Dame. Can you knock down Auburn and kind of continue that revenge tour here? So exciting times for A&M. All of that is good stuff. What I will say, if you're talking about any type of things that you'd be a little concerned about, is 40 points, to Notre Dame. They have some miscues, some things that they got to encourage or, rail in here on the defensive side of the ball. CJ Carr, he's obviously a good quarterback, young quarterback. He's making plays. He's playing smart. Jeremiah Love, obviously the best running back in the country. Jadarian Price, another solid running back. So there are some things. Obviously, you were going to expect them to score. You're going to expect them to make plays. Home opener. They play inspired football too. I think that's something that people have forgotten maybe about this in this moment is Notre Dame was fighting. They were fighting to not go 0-2. They were fighting for early to not be written off as a playoff contender. 0-2 start. No team's ever come back from that and made the college football playoff. So they were fighting with everything they had there, and A&M weathered the storm and found a way to win. So obviously it wasn't the most perfect way defensively, for that to unfold like that. But, I think Coach Elko would, agree with the sentiment, but you'd rather learn these lessons in victory than in loss. And for A&M to be 3-0, and for us to understand that there are some things that needs to be, worked out and some things that aren't going to be perfectly clean, I think they could take that and just be entirely happy about it. There isn't a single person here that's going to say, 3-0, all these things to work on. You'll take that in spades. But moving forward, like I said, this is a team. This is a quality football team. Okay. I think people have to understand that that's a fact. Now, will they stumble? Will there be adversity? I'm sure. But this is a team that needs to be respected on a national scale. Their top 10 ranking, to me, echoes that people believe that and feel that sentiment to be true. Now, what they do with it from this point forward will ultimately decide and define what this season could be. I don't know how much the Notre Dame game changes the outlook of this season as a whole. I said that a win would bring the hype train here. But as far as A&M goes, if you talk to these players and these coaches, I think they expected to be in this spot. I think they expected to be a team that is going to be in the mix for your college football playoff. I think they expected the team to be a team that is ultimately going to be able to reach their goals. Now, do they find a way to stay that path without stumbles, without falls? Like, don't lose a game you shouldn't lose to, right? These games look winnable. Auburn looks winnable. They're a ranked team. They're a team that can beat you. They can beat you. They beat you last year. Can you find a way to weather that storm, right? Now, obviously, way down the road, you got LSU in Death Valley, a place that they've really struggled since the 90s, early 90s. Can you find a way to win that one? Can you beat Florida because they're struggling? And then later in the season, you got Texas and Austin. We know all about those question marks and what that looks like with Arch Manning. So there is a ton of football to be played. There are a lot of things to be sorted out. But if you're going to sit here and look at what A&M has been able to do through 3 weeks, through the first month of the season, they're passing in flying colors and spades here. So A&M football 3-0 at the bye week. Welcome to the Auburn Tigers in week 5. If you're an Aggie fan, if you're in the 12th man, you're in College Station, enjoy it, right? Because this is what you had hoped to see from your team. This is what you had hoped to feel program-wise. Year 2 under Mike Elko, year 2 in his tenure. things are progressing, right? We had talked about progression. This is a team that felt they were moving in the right direction, but it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it. And to beat Notre Dame after losing last year, to go into that environment, to find a way to win that football game, it's undeniable that this progress is happening. Right now, this is the type of game where human nature kicks in, right? Some people say, yo, those moments you can get tense, your heart rate can raise, you can be nervous because of the spot, you can be nervous about the moment. Those are human emotions. But this is a team that's proven, and they have a quarterback who has proven. Just like Alco said in the post game, he gave him a chance to win in Auburn. He gave him a chance to win at USC, and they pulled it out here this week at Notre Dame. You have a quarterback, and now you have a team that understands what it takes to win in those moments. Their heart rate is going to slow down a little bit. They're going to be a little bit more locked in, a little bit more focused, a little bit more confidence that they can do this moving forward. Don't just look at this game in just a vacuum and say it's one football game that, they got one play. It could be monumental moving forward. This is a program potentially season defining and program defining win with Mike Elko at the helm. It's all good things right now. So with that being said, let me know what you guys think. I think I'm not trying to overstate anything. I'm not a shock jock. I'm not somebody who's looking to do this, oh, it's going to be amazing. They're going to be number one team in the country. No, they got some challenges coming and they got some battles. And, there may be some slip ups along the way, but if you're sitting here, you got to feel good about what this A&M football team has put together through 3 weeks. Dare I say they look like the best team in the state right now? But hey, a lot of football to be played, but that doesn't mean you should stop yourself from enjoying what they've seen so far. So, Tony Catalina, you can find me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Tony_Catalina. All of my articles at the Statesman. You go to statesman.com/TAMU, TAMU, and let me know what you think. I think this is exciting times. I think you'd agree, but encouraged to hear what everyone thinks. So, with that being said, this is another episode Behind Enemy Lines, Texas A&M Football Podcast. I'll see you next week. Peace.